Come back and thanks for staying with us. You're watching JKL. Charles Nyachai is with us in studio, Dr. Ekuru Okot and Professor Kivutha Kibwana, all instrumental in midwifing the Constitution 2010, which today marks its 15th birthday. Yes, Prof, you had a point before.
Yes, I had a point. You know, sometimes, of course, we blame the parliament to say that it's being controlled by the executive. But that's just one aspect of control. Because to become a member of parliament, you go through these political parties, which are by and large ethnically based. And the party as the kingpin leader of it. And so you have to accept what this kingpin tells you. And therefore, even when you go to parliament, you are not an independent entity as such, because there is the executive and then there is this leader of your political party, so that you have, so to speak, two masters. And particularly now when they get involved in CDF, and they make mistakes in CDF, and many of them do because they trade with it and so on. So again, the executive has a file, you know, against you. And sometimes you are told, you know, if you don't behave, this is what...
like Gachagua confessed.
That is what will happen. So, and that is why, like, 70% of the MPs, you know, don't come back. And again, even for the citizens, when we believe we have a vote, that is not exactly the case, because this leader from your ethnic region will say, this is how we'll vote. So actually, that is the person with all the votes, technically. Not, I mean, in reality, technically, of course, I'll go and vote. Some people, of course, are independent. So I think to free parliament from, you know, the executive and from these party people, the party leaders, you know, that is, again, a lot of work which has to be...
How should it be done, if not through the self-conscious of the parliamentarians who ought to be distinguishing that it's the public pressing matters that should outweigh political party belonging or political party positions?
Precisely. And this now comes into... to what extent do you have people coming into the politics, not because they're simply being identified and sent just by political parties, but people who realize that your primary responsibility with your electorate, and that takes growth, I would imagine, so that we are weaned from people who are identified by the kingpins and told, you're in parliament, courtesy of myself. And then when they get there, then the executive says, you know, I will be giving you some money when you do what I want, and therefore, you know, if you have problems, I will help you out. Even development for you to be re-elected. And then ultimately, they are not elected. But I also wanted to say that there's this paradox. The citizen is supposed to be sovereign and to actually delegate power. But again, if there is no civic education, if the people don't know, actually that is their position, then that sovereignty doesn't really mean much. And that is why I think we have emphasized that this civic education is so critical. And Charles did say, and I also said that earlier, that there is now, there used to be the body where he was chair, you know, which was responsible for helping us track how the constitution is being implemented. Okay. And that doesn't exist anymore. So as the president has, you know, declared today, the Katiba Day, one thing that he could really do, and it would really be real and important, is to now go back to which body should be established, you know, by Parliament to achieve, you know, that tracking of the constitution. Because even in the state of address, there isn't a specific way of the president saying at the end of a year, this is how the constitution has been implemented. Because if that happened again, very, very not just the state of nation address, but a specific, the president, for example, either, you know, going before Parliament and saying, this is how much we have done this. And I think, as was said, each organ has this responsibility, so that, therefore, the culture comes from all sides.
Okay. Except, Prof, I think such a body would have to have constitutional underpinning and protection. If it was merely created by Parliament by an act of Parliament, I'm not sure that it would have the necessary gravitas to hold all this, the government, all these institutions to account insofar as the Constitution is concerned. So I agree with you, but you know, every so often we are talking about amending the Constitution, which is not a bad thing if we have thought through it. What personally I get nervous is when we want to amend the Constitution to deal with an immediate, specific political problem.
Short-term political problem.
Yeah, but if we are amending the Constitution because we have identified what is going to help us realize, because I maintain, and many of us do, that you people did a good job. I think by and large it's not perfect, and you can't get a perfect document anyway, but it's a good constitution. So it may well be good to get an opportunity to improve on bits and pieces where we have looked back and seen now here we need to improve.
I hold a different view.
The quick fixes.
I hold a different view. I don't think we need another body to track the implementation of the Constitution. What we need actually is to hold people currently with constitutional mandate and responsibilities accountable. Because already, for example, we have independent offices. But so long as those bodies are subservient to the appointing authority, and that is the problem we have in Kenya of even realizing the fruits of the Constitution. Because people feel beholden to the appointing authority. I mean, few, if any. In fact, the only example today I can cite without fear of contradiction is actually the Auditor General, who has boldly spoken about how money is being stolen. The others are very subservient. For example, today, why hasn't IPOA, the Independent Police Oversight Authority, not told us exactly who killed Ojwang in a police cell, Njoki? Who is that cop who actually shot
Boniface Karaoke
on the street when he was just...
But investigations are ongoing, Dr.
Well, listen, when the former member of Zetu Kasipul was killed, you saw the speed with which the investigation went on. Surely, with Boniface Karaoke, what investigation do you need? There were 2 cops there who actually shot him in broad daylight in the glare of cameras. Ojwang was killed in a cell. Somebody was responsible. So how come, we are saying investigation is still ongoing with the death of these Gen Zs, but with the death of Were, there was so speed investigation. Guys were even arraigned quickly in court. So I think for me, the question really is, as Kenyans, I don't think we are short of laws. We are not short of reports. Remember, Ayub, we have had so many commission of inquiries that have established the problem in this country is going through. The problem is actually implementation and the lack of good political will to actually implement this constitution. If today, for example, I don't understand, I don't even know why we keep on saying that we call on this government, for example, to ensure the implementation of the constitution, when the president and some of his ministers are calling for the killing of Kenyans. It doesn't make sense. And I think we are just talking, kupigia mbuzi guitar, So I think for me, it's just that we have got irresponsible leadership in the country. We have got people who do not understand the Constitution, they have not read the Constitution, they don't want to read it, they don't care. Politics in Kenya just commercialized. So the Constitution is just it's just a document.
No appetite, certainly.
Yeah.
But just on Charles, Prof, coming to you, ideally there should be consequence on the part of the executive if Parliament impeaches a president, is it that he can leave office, but parliamentarians enjoy political immunity unless recalled or they head to the ballot after an electoral cycle. So why then do you think in this setup. It's parliament that is pulling back from the pressure. And ideally, is this war good for our democracy?
Well, I think even in this instance where parliament has been called out, and, you know, they've made some muffled noises because they know that they because of some of the things that, you know, they do, the kind of our parliament being like one of the most highly paid, you know, in the country, and even the money which they get when they do certain things that they're asked to do. And as I said earlier, the problems with CDF and so on. So they don't have the strength to do what actually the Constitution says they should do. Because, yes, they impeach the deputy president. They can. It's the same provisions used to impeach, you know, a president if they, you know, realize that that is necessary. And I don't think that that is something that they are going to do soon. And for them to recall them, first of all, for 2 years you can't, because the law, you know, says you can't. Yeah. And then even now they're trying to amend the law so that they're saying that, you know, I think about 50% of whoever elected them or something like that. So they're protecting, you know, they are protecting themselves. But a governor, you can be impeached immediately. You have been elected. You don't have that kind of quote immunity. Yeah. So it really goes back to where does pressure come from, particularly from the citizenry, so that the citizenry can say that, you see, it is this constitution which is one of the most important things that keeps us together. And if it is not being obeyed, then it's like we want to tear apart, you know, the country. And so this sensitization, you know, again becomes, you know, I think it becomes very, very important. And even the advices that the president gets, and there are so many advisors, like compensation. First of all, what's the legal basis of that compensation? That's one thing we have asked, which is the law that is being used. And of course, the moment you say that people should be compensated, you are saying that you know, it's wrong. You did the wrong thing. You are guilty because you have said that there should be compensation. Because if it wasn't something that was if it was right, then you wouldn't say there should be compensation. And of course, the moment, therefore, you say there is compensation, you are saying it is wrong, it means that there are other consequences. That the people who did this, first of all, there must be justice. They must be taken to court. Right. And it also means that these charges of terrorism should be withdrawn, because you have said that actually wrong things were done, and therefore the protests, you know, were, you know, legal. So,
or the people plotting a coup. There was an accusation that people
of stuff like that.
No names are presented either.
Yeah. So I really think, you know, there's so many loose ends, and therefore one wants, if you have a battery of advisors, you know, why are decisions coming through which don't seem to be thought out, you know, carefully?
Yeah, yes.
I was going to say, Daktari, you know, here we are not talking about duplicating anything that is being done by any of the independent commissions or of the constitutional commissions or independent offices. We are saying, or at least what I am arguing for, is a body that keeps track of the implementation of the 2010 Constitution in its entirety. Yeah, because the Kenya Human Rights Commission will look at its mandate of human rights. It doesn't have a mandate to monitor the
entire framework.
The entire framework and how it is being implemented. And the other reason why I think this is important...
You know, the Kenya Law Reform Commission can actually do that work easily. And so can the Office of the Attorney General.
You know,
And so can the government.
No, the government is the one being...
Yeah.
The government is the one which is supposed to be implementing and being monitored. But you've talked about the Kenya Law Reform Commission,
yeah,
which does not have a constitutional underpinning. The Attorney General...
The Law Society of Kenya can do that under Section 4 of the LSK Act.
Yeah, but all I'm saying, those are statutory bodies. But I happen to believe that a body which has constitutional mandate, as opposed to the legislative bodies you are referring to, will do. And remember, that will be its primary mandate. That wouldn't be the Law Society's primary mandate. It's probably not the Law Reform Commission's.
So may I have a proposal, Chair?
Yeah. But even before your proposal, before your proposal,
yes,
what Charles is saying. For example, in other jurisdictions, you have like part of a constitutional court, which is able to, before laws are passed, is able to look at them and then say that this is not, this is not correct. And although it is still part of the judiciary, it is able to do that particular function. So this independent commission, like the initial commission, which actually did a lot of work in terms of making that the laws, the facilitative laws were passed, that was a positive thing. The only difference with what Nyacha is arguing and what I'm arguing is he says that there should be a constitutional body. But I'm saying in the interim, before we make that a constitutional body, we need to have a stopgap measure because there is need. There is need for this task, this function to be performed by somebody.
Which I completely agree with, Professor. I was just saying the ideal situation.
Yes.
But in terms of interim measure, because that recognizes the need, I am with you.
Yes.
I'm with you.
No, but I think we are escaping away from the need to hold current government.
We have said current government must be. We have said so.
But I think maybe Ayub, I don't know whether this moves the debate to a sort of a solution. That's why I was saying I have a suggestion.
Okay.
For example, I think one of the things that maybe we need to do, and that's why I was invoking the role of the Kenya Law Reform Commission.
Yes.
I think to realize the implementation of this constitution, there is one aspect that I think has not been done. Auditing existing legislations. For example, we have got this law called the Commission of Inquiries Act. And you can see it in the penchant of the president in appointing these task forces and all that. It doesn't exist in the current constitution. It does not have that role, actually, in the current constitution, especially with independent officers. I think all you need to do actually is to empower these independent officers to actually, or even just expand their mandate, for example. And that way we're able now to track how are we, and you see, in the State of the Nation address, Prof, and you know this, nothing stops the President from speaking about where are we at with the Constitution.
In terms of giving an account?
Yes. Nothing stops the President.
Nothing stops him, but there are specifics that you required of him. There are specifics.
Yes.
That the few times I have listened to the State of the Nation address by the President in Parliament, right, from the former President, they tend to carefully address the specifics that the Constitution requires of them, as opposed to agenda. That's why I'm saying what the President has done about today gives us a window to perhaps seek to move towards what Daktari here is saying, so that the President maybe, even before there would be any constitutional amendment, there's nothing to stop him from undertaking to include a holistic review of the status of implementation of the Constitution in the State of the Nation address.
Okay.
So, but see, if you look at the powers and the function of the President, I think it must be under Article 132, sub-Article 4, where he can actually form an office or upon recommendation by the Public Service Commission. So maybe that could be the window that the president now can say, let me form this independent body to oversight and to track the implementation of the Constitution. So he can do it without necessarily us constitutionalizing that office.
Okay.
Then you are agreeing what, because Prof talked about an interim measure, which I agreed with. That's what I would see that as. But if at any point
Which you said is a stopgap measure.
Yes, a stopgap measure. But if at any point we are going to actually actively look at amending the Constitution, all I'm saying is that I think is one that would be important. And then we could also entrench how this civic education...
You know, the fear I have,
yes,
sorry
briefly,
to get you on this, the fear I have with us going that direction, is that we are excusing the current office holders from accounting.
Not at all.
No. But I think, Prof, can we start first of all with that accountability?
But that is a given.
Yes.
That is a given.
But you see, the reason we are talking about it...
In actual fact, that particular committee or commission, whatever, will be able to say, you are not implementing. You are not doing what you should do.
Okay, so for example, let's use let me use this. For example, today, to what extent have we held the office of the president and that of the Cabinet Secretary for Interior accountable for the pronouncement they made about shoot to kill, maim, and all that? To what extent have we done?
But the reason
Parliament...
And
ideally, there are institutions mandated to do that, isn't it?
No. But we have Parliament, for example, that ought to actually say, no, Mr. President, you have gone wrong. Mr. Murkomen, this is wrong. You are violating, you are actually encouraging the violation of the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4. So why are we not holding them accountable now? You want us to wait until when we are...
No.
Not really.
Nobody wants us to wait. All we are saying, as Ayub is saying, there are bodies right now that are mandated.
Of course, mandated institutions.
Yes.
As we sample the feedback. Let's see what Kenyans are saying. And many thanks.
Okay.
So the first one here comes from Nyantika Chester, says there's no doubt that Kenya's 2010 constitution is one of the best around the world, but unfortunately it hasn't been implemented to the latter, and truth be told, many, if not all, in the political class are pretty okay with the status quo, courtesy of political expediency. Churchill Omondi says, great listening to the great men of our nation. I feel two-way hopeful and optimistic enough, but again, who will in the near future believe that we were simply going back to darkness after we had known light? Baba Michael says, as we celebrate Katiba at 15, I find it ironical that those who recently made pronouncements which are totally unconstitutional, the President and C.S. Murkomen, are now the biggest champions of the Constitution. It's simply the time to walk the talk. Sanexon Dugura says, no constitution is 100% okay. There is always room for improvement, i.e. on gender balancing, etc., etc. Unfortunately, our leaders seem to have no time for improving it, but have lots of time to campaign for the unending general elections. Ndiema says the 2010 constitution suffers from multiple interpretations of the same clauses, allowing leaders to twist it to their advantage. This makes it more of a tool of convenience than a true guide of justice. Nothing much to celebrate. Munga Raphael says, on paper, the constitution has largely been implemented. It's the spirit of constitutionalism where the country is missing, largely missing. Okay, he repeats, all arms of government, and especially the executive and parliament. Engineer Lazaro says the major misses of the 2010 constitution are separation of powers, Transparency and Police Services Act. Police still harbor colonial era behaviors. Caleb says the constitution is only as good as the people it serves, considering the habitual nature of Kenyans is the purposive nature of the document far from being realized. What ought to be done to realize the objectives of the same? Okay. So your final comments here, starting with you, Dr. Ekuru.
So for me,
or Professor.
Okay, I would like to make a comment about the police, what somebody said about the police and, being still in the colonial era. One of the things that the Constitution did was actually to have a specific chapter on national security. And actually in that chapter, whether it is, the defense, forces, 14. Whether it is NIS, whether it is the national police, it is very, very clear that they are supposed to respect democracy, to respect human rights, in terms of how they do their work. And that has been a big miss. And, you know, one really expects all this time when there have been police reforms, they have really, up to now, not quite worked. And that's one, you know, major area of, you know, changing. And so that there is now also the question of culture, you know, having a new utumishi kwa wote for real. That's a big issue for me, of course, including looking at the terms of, you know, the training and all that kind of stuff. But just to be on point in terms of our discussion, there is still hope that this constitution will carry our country. But the question, as we have been, you know, saying again and again, the question of developing this culture of, you know, respecting the constitution, upholding it, and implementing it, that is something that, you know, will be very critical going forward. And I am very nervous about any constitutional change, even the NADCO constitutional, you know, changes, even some of the legislative changes themselves. One doesn't really know whether they help us or they are just being done for, you know, elections. So there are issues about the constitution, like the gender principle, which should have been done. There are issues about, do we want to look at the system of, for example, elections, proportional representation, parliamentary, and so on. But that debate should actually occur after 2027.
Yes, Dr. Ekuru.
Yeah, so for me, I'll just repeat by saying that, close by saying that, I think if we want to experience the culture of constitutionalism, we must be able to punish people who violate the Constitution. And I think if there was one amendment I'll actually bring to the Constitution today, is to amend Article 1, where actually when people misuse that sovereign power that is donated to them, then the people should be able to fire them. I think the mechanism is not there in the Constitution, and even if it means actually allowing people to go into a referendum to fire a government that has failed their representatives, I think we should do that. Because the violation of the Constitution has happened. I don't know, you will recall, for example, the deployment of our police to Haiti. It was actually a violation of Article 14 of the Constitution of National Security. When we went to solicit views from Kenyans said, we don't want a police force anymore. We want a service. And that service has to be within the jurisdiction of Kenya. That you cannot deploy them. The police cannot also be controlled by anybody else other than the Inspector General of Police. But we had a president who actually overstepped that. We did not have a reciprocal agreement by dint of a National Police Service Commission with Haiti. We don't even have diplomatic arrangement with them. There was no gazettement of that. And we won that case before Justice Chacha actually gave a very good ruling and said that was unconstitutional. So whereas the president, in my view, is protected from civil and criminal prosecution, but I think we should now be talking about when he violates the Constitution, which is the will of the people, and that's sovereign power, what should we do? And you know, any constitution in the world could be as good as the paper is being written on. But if you don't respect it, then it's not even worth that paper is written on. And I think that's where we are. Ours, like it's been said, is one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. It's very developmental in nature. I mean, it's not perfect, and I'm not saying that because I was in the team that wrote this constitution. But I think there are certain irreducible minimums this constitution has achieved. Coming from the northern part of Kenya, for the longest time, as guys used to say, we are being marginalized. Today, we cannot talk about marginalization unless we ourselves are marginalizing ourselves, because the Constitution has given us that platform where actually we are kind of, you know, there's an element of, there's a degree to which this Constitution is actually building a nation state, bring all of us together equitably.
Thank you.
So I think we just need people who are government, and you know, this being a social contract, Ayub, it's about a contract between the people and the state apparatus. So when the state apparatus is actually failing to uphold this contract, then I think the people must be agitated. That's why you see the Gen Z movement coming up.
Yes, Charles.
Thank you. Ayub, Thomas Jefferson, who was one of the principal framers of the U.S. Constitution, is recorded to have said that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. I think this applies to us here. This is why we are having this conversation. And this is why this vigilance must come from all of us. You know, the Kenyans who have sent those messages that you read to us, the one thread that goes through all of them is their frustration that this constitution effectively, in its implementation, I don't think there was any of them who said that there was something wrong with the document. They were all talking about the implementation and the relationship of that to the citizen. Even my brother here, Daktari, and I don't blame him, he's a very frustrated man. Maybe we express our frustrations differently. He's a very frustrated man. And that's why he's speaking. And I commend him for that. That's why he's speaking like that. But you see, Daktari, when you talk, for example, about having ways of getting leadership which has not worked for us, those of you who wrote the Constitution and those of us who are implementing it knew, we didn't know the extent. The reason you included some of those provisions, things like the impeachment, there was one going on in the Senate today, even at the national level, things like that. Why we were trying to implement the provision of recalling members of parliament is precisely because consciously we knew that at some point there could be leaders who would deviate from what the Kenyans want.
That was the expectation.
That was the expectation. And I'm saying that I think the Constitution as is does provide mechanisms for doing that. The only thing that I would want to emphasize, and this is my closing remark, is on this Katiba Day, it would be good if every Kenyan sat back and in retrospection and ask themselves, I as an individual Kenyan who doesn't hold any office, but I have a role to play even in those leaders being there. What is it that I can do?
Thank you.
What is it that I can do to make that difference? And that's why I go back, Prof. Civic education would empower these Kenyans to retrospect adequately and make the change.
And I think to honor Katiba Day, I want to challenge Kenyans.
Okay.
At least read a chapter of the Constitution every day.
Absolutely.
Every day. Don't read the entire Constitution. At least every day.
And also, there is the office of the citizen.
Yes.
That is what Article 1 says.
Yes.
That should be enhanced.
Absolutely.
Read a chapter every day.
And it's continually a very active office. Charles, thanks for your time. Much appreciated.
Asante.
Asante
Thank you
sana.
for inviting me.
Much appreciated. Prof, asante sana for your
Asante,
company.
Ayub.
What a very eventful day, lovely and momentous in the history of our country. It's the 15th birthday of one of the most transformative, eloquent, admired, and which places you, the citizen, at the center of decision-making, all sovereign power that it bestows upon you under Article 1. Many thanks for being a part of this wonderful conversation on the bench this evening, and we'll see you tomorrow morning on Daybreak. Till then, good night and God bless you.